The Lost Cryptids Conservatory, where we will shatter your reality to bring you closer to the truth.
All right, guys, welcome to another live show. Got a pretty interesting one, I think, today. Let's see some comments. Let's see if my audio is working. Make sure I don't do that again. Glad to see everyone in the chat. Sherry, she's out investigating right now, listening to me too. That's funny. Good luck. Hopefully, you guys get something. Get some good evidence, so we can take a look at it and see. All right, audio is good. Wow, what a week it's been for me. Car trouble and people just walking up into my house. Actually had a random guy on drugs. Actually, I heard the dog bark, so I let the dog in. And the guy's at the front door. I'm at the back door, which is it's on the same side. It's in a trailer. But I look at him. He looks at me, and I'm thinking it's the maintenance person. So I go to the front door. I open the front door, and I see him walking in the other door inside the house. I was like, okay, whatever. That's weird, but so I confront him, and this dude is out of his mind on drugs, telling me it's his sister's house. You know, I'm a pretty patient guy. You know, try to talk first, but when that doesn't work out, let me tell you, I get pretty mean pretty fast. So I took a video of it for evidence purposes, telling the guy, hey, you're trespassing. Why are you here? Stuff like that. And I got tired of it. And I pushed him around and I choked him, grabbed him in the rear naked choke, and I choked him. Choked him out, picked him up, and threw him out of my house. Called the cops, and he's looking about 90 days in jail now. Should have listened to me and just got out of my house. That was a very interesting morning, and you should always be on guard, no matter what, because people are more dangerous than anything. Sasquatch or whatever. I mean, most of the time, people are the ones you got to watch out for. So let's just say he didn't have a good day after that. And the reason why I bring that up is because, when you're on the trail and you're in the middle of the woods, you don't know what kind of people you're going to walk into. Most of the time, most people in the woods, most hikers on average are really good people, pretty trustworthy. But, there are predators out there. There's people just on drugs that are in the middle of the woods. And you just don't know what their intent is and what they actually are trying to do in their drug-fueled mind state. But yeah, very interesting. So for those of you who've seen the little short live video I did of the dude in my house, I did choke him out, and he did get out of my house after that. He should have just listened to me. So let's get started. All right, so the show is going to be about, we'll talk about Bigfoot, of course, but we're going to get into more of Native American legends from the Anasazi tribe, also known as the Algonquin, which is a French word for the tribes. It's actually multiple tribes, and they speak the Algonquin language family group, which is a multi-dialect language group that actually different languages, but they all are related to the Algonquin family group. And so let me pull up some maps, but basically it's the Great Lake regions in Canada. So these multiple different tribes have many different myths and legends of a variety of creatures in the Great Lakes region, including Sasquatch, of course, but also they talk about the little people. They talk about the Wendigos. They talk about the water panthers, great horned serpents, thunderbirds, a variety of different things. So let me pull up this map real quick. Get started. There's my other half. All right, now this map, like most maps that you find of Native American tribes and their regions of where they lived, is not accurate because these territories and boundaries were ever changing. But this is a good map that showed a majority of the Algonquin language group tribes. Now, these are different tribes, and they speak different languages, but it's all a part of the Algonquin language group. Even though there are a lot of differences in the way they speak and the way they pronounce certain words and the way they wrote once they started writing English translations and stuff. But all these tribes have very similar myth and legends, considering it's the same regions of the Great Lakes region of how they came to be in this habitat region. And they these are the tribes that I look for and study because they are around the areas of Michigan, the Great Lakes, northern Canada. And of course, this actually is very small. It actually spreads towards Western Canada with the Ojibwe and the Cree. And there's also a few not listed on here, like Blackfeet. But anyways, all these groups of native tribes actually originated on the northern shores of Lake Superior, coming from the east. And then they found Turtle Island, which is Michigan. and they have a number of different legends and myths and creation stories of uh, how they came to find Michigan. And there's a very interesting uh, prophecy that they have, the prophecy of fire, of how uh, they begin their travels, and actually talks about the white man coming over here. And well, actually, I'll pull that up and read from that a little bit later. But yeah, this prophecy actually extends all the way to the end of the world, and talks about how if mankind doesn't change its ways, uh, if mankind lets greed take over its soul, that this will cause the end of the world. But if mankind can grow and become better, it can actually save the world. So it's very interesting stuff. This is stuff that I've researched ever since I was a kid. I've been a big fan of Native American history, legends, lore, being part, very, very small part, Potawatomi. I've always been fascinated by the culture, everything. So I'm going to pull up some more different pictures here. And there's other maps, and there's different territories drawn for each of these tribes. And most of these maps that you find are not correct, not accurate, because these lands were always changing. And I could put up a dozen different maps, and they will show a dozen different territories that are totally different. And the official history of these tribes in this region only go back so far. The official historians don't accept the oral traditions of these people as fact or as reality. And these oral traditions go back thousands of years. They talk about different warrior heroes that actually did fight different types of monsters and help actually create animals and stuff. Of course, we don't know how old these stories are, but it's my guess that these are thousands and thousands of year old stories from this land, talking about what was actually here and what the land was like. And there were, in fact, giants, and they were monsters on the earth in those times. All right, so this is actually a pictographed from Utah, but is depicting the horned serpent, which in a lot of different Native American tribes from across the Americas have stories of this mythological creature. So let me read a little bit from the Algonquin's legend about the horned serpent. I'm going to butcher this name. I've actually been studying how to speak this, but this is a pretty big word, and I haven't practiced it. But the Algonquin name in the tribe affiliations would be the Ojibwe, the Algonquin, the Ottawa, the Menominee, the Shawnee, and the Crees, and also the Potawatomi. They call this Mishnagabig, and I'm definitely not saying that right. There's actually dozens of alternative spellings of this, and a variety of different ways to say it. But basically, this is known as the Great Horned Serpent, and it is a underwater horned serpent common with the legends of most Algonquin tribes and other Native American tribes, which is said to lurk in lakes and eat humans. They are the sworn enemies of the Thunderbirds, who can kill them with, and the Thunderbirds kill them with bolts of thunder. And Mishnabig literally means great serpent in the Anishinaabe languages, Anasazi languages, of course. And this creature, again, was said to swallow people, swallow canoes, would live in the Great Lakes, but also smaller lakes. Um, this would sometimes actually crawl on land, travel on land to lakes to breed and to get new habitats. But the natives were very adamant that this creature was alive, that it was a real creature that inhabited the waters of the Great Lakes region and beyond, and that it did in fact eat people. And they're very adamant about this. And of course, they said that it fought with the Thunderbirds, and they would have great battles. Of course, this creature being very large, just like the Thunderbird. Usually, the Thunderbirds would kill these serpents and actually eat them. These were considered evil spirits type of creatures because they ate the people. And again, this picture is from from the region of Utah, actually, in a cave out there. And this is not the same thing as a water panther, which is another probably more well known native creature, mythological creature in different myths and legends, who also fights thunderbirds and does eat Native Americans too. So let me put up some more pictures. So here's another cave drawing painting. This is actually depicting a water panther. And these creatures were said to roam the waters of the Great Lakes region and beyond, North and Canada. And these were kind of described almost like a dragon-like creature, where it did have, on some stories, scales, horns, and spikes on its back, of course. But it had 4 legs, and it was a mixture between a panther, basically a dragon, and the sizes of this varied from, I'm a 20-foot creature to about 40 or 50 feet, where it's actually massively bigger than the canoes. So the name translates to underwater panther. This is from the Ojibwe, Algonquin, Ottawa, Shawnee, the Cree, the Potawatomi, the Menominee, the Fox Miami. It's also known as the Great Lynx, the Water Lynx, the Night Panther, the Underground Panther, and the Underneath Panther. It is a type of water spirit in some regards. The water panther or the water lynx is a powerful mythological creature, something like a cross between a cougar and a dragon. The water panther is a dangerous monster that lives deep in deep water and causes men and women to drown. A lot of the aspects of people drowning in the waters was attributed to these creatures, whether it was a great deep lake or a river. These creatures were the cause of drownings, many drownings. A lot of spiritual aspects to that too. The legends of some tribes describe the water panther the size of a real lynx, or a mountain lion, while in others, the beast is enormous. Like I said, about 40 or 50 feet, massive. Water panthers are very long, have a very long tail, which is often said to be made of copper, or a harder substance that the Native Americans couldn't pierce with their obsidian or rock arrows and spears. And so they thought it was made out of copper because some Native Americans were working very limited uses of copper, not the mound builder type of copper technology, but very primitive uses. Details of the monster vary from community to community, but in many stories, water panthers are described as furry with either horns or deer antlers and sharp sawtooth backs. And there are a number of water panther stories. They have a Chippewa legend of two women encountering a water panther. The Ojibwe storytellers describe the legendary underwater panther. They have a Cree story of how the wolverine and the water panther defeated a giant skunk monster. A lot of these stories regarded as a real life thing that is very dangerous and should be respected and also feared. And so here's a cave painting of it. And in this size, showing the size of the canoe relatively to the size of the creature, and also these serpents down here. I'm not sure if they're horned serpents. They don't have any horns. But the serpent on the right looks to have a hand or something, which, is a little different. And the Thunderbirds would fight these creatures and actually eat them. Of course, the Thunderbirds' enemies were usually creatures that lived in water or were around water. Thunderbirds being of the sky. And there is no modern reports of any water panthers. There's actually more reports of sea serpents in the Great Lakes, which could be considered the great horned serpents. And they definitely is not recognized officially, of course. But we do know that in ancient times, and there's definitely been records of bull sharks and other ocean species of things getting into the Great Lakes. Now, we do know that bull sharks can survive in fresh water as long as it's warm enough. They have been found up the Mississippi, hundreds of miles away from the ocean. And so maybe at one time before the locks and all this, that there was different creatures that were able to come up through the Great Lakes and made their home here. I know this is a little bit different than regular Bigfoot stuff, but this is very fascinating stuff because these people thought that Bigfoot, along with these other creatures, were very real. They weren't made up. Bigfoot was very real to them. The water panther was very real to them. So here's a illustration that someone made of the Pudgewuggies, or little people. And these little people were across these little people were actually in several different tribes, mythologies, all the way to the South southeast of Americas, totally opposite end of where the Algonquin tribes were at, and yet they have very similar stories, very similar pronunciations of this, a little bit different pronunciations, but you have Pukwudgies, Pudgewudgies, Pukwudgies, and a whole different slew of spellings, just the Algonquin language groups, let alone the thousands of other tribes spread out across the Americas. And so these stories from the Algonquin come from the Chippewa, which is the Ottawa, just another name. The Algonquin, the Ojibwe, the Potawatomi, and of course the names mean little ones or little people. And these are a little people. They were considered forest spirits. And these typically, Pudgewuggies were magical little people of the forest in Algonquin folklore, similar to European gnomes or fairies. Pudgewuggy stories are told throughout the northeastern U.S., southeastern Canada, and the Great Lakes region. However, their nature varies in folklore of different tribes. In the Ojibwe and other Great Lakes tribes, the Pudgewuggy, or the Bagawan and Bagwudjani, spelled with a B, is considered a mischievous, but basically a good-natured creature who plays tricks on people, but is not dangerous. In other tribes, they speak of the same thing. They are tricksters, but they are more menacing, and that they would actually hurt people. A Pudgewuggy can be dangerous, but only to the people who treat him with disrespect. In the other tribes of South New England, Pudgewuggies are conspicuous and dangerous creatures who may play harmless tricks or even help a human neighbor, but they are just as likely to steal children or commit deadly acts of sabotage. According to some stories, the Pudgewuggies are enemies of the culture hero Meshap, and were even responsible for his death or for the deaths of his son. Pudgewuggies are usually described as being knee-high or even smaller. Their name literally means person of the wilderness. This is some different tribes' orientation, because we already have some that just means little people or little ones. They are usually considered to be spirits of the forest, and in some traditions they have a sweet smell and are associated with flowers. Pudgewuggies have magical abilities which vary from tribe to tribe, but may include the ability to turn invisible, confuse people, or make them forget things, shapeshift into cougars or other dangerous animals, or bring harm to the people by staring at them. And so these considered very real, and this doesn't give a description of what they look like, but in some tribes they look like Native Americans, just like in this picture. In other stories, they are hairy creatures, almost like a Bigfoot, but smaller, very small. So you have a lot of different tribes describing the same things, but in different ways with different attitudes towards them. But a lot of it, which is similar, is the trickster aspect, which in the European lore of fairies and gnomes, that trickster aspect comes up very, very often. But if you are respectful and you gift these things, that they help you out. They like in European folklore, they help tend the gardens and stuff, or the little gnomes that help the shoe cobblers. They help make the shoes and a variety of different stories, and the natives have their own stories of the same thing, both good and bad. You could actually, there's stories of the good giant and the bad pudgewuggies. They have the Dikatu, which is traditional tales of the Pudgewuggies and other little people. This is from 4 different Native American tribes. And this brings up, I'm going to bring up another picture that I showed a couple weeks back. And I have to make a correction because I learned that this guy was actually hoaxing. So let me pull this up real quick and we'll explain why he was hoaxing. Okay, so I showed a series of pictures of this, and you can see in this picture, there's a little person. It actually turned out to be CGI. This guy made another video showing really horrible CGI as he was explaining what was really going on. And so this is fake and stuff. And I kind of fell for it. And I knew it was kind of CGI-ish. Sometimes it just takes a while to research and look at other videos, and you find out the guy's really hoaxing. And I know this is being spread around the internet right now, but it's a hoax. It's a deliberate hoax on purpose. So I definitely am letting everyone know that what I did show earlier in a different show is fake. Unfortunately. All right, so let's get into the Thunderbirds. So here's some Thunderbirds illustrations from different tribes. You have the Ojibwe towards the bottom middle. And you have the pebble at the very top left of the screen. But all these are different interpretations and drawings of the Thunderbird. And, of course, this creature was very real. It was said to its enormous wings would flap, and it would be the sound of thunder. And that's why they called them Thunderbirds. They would usually also ride on the front of storms or in the storms. And we do know that birds, bald eagles, and other raptor-type birds will actually fly in front of storms, riding on the drafts, carrying them to great heights and across the land with relatively low energy use that they are spending. So these are different designs. Very interesting, I think. And this is all stuff that fascinated me since I was a kid. It's kind of nice to rehash this because I do think it relates to the Sasquatch phenomenon. So a lot of especially on the West Coast, the totem poles usually depict Thunderbirds at the very top as the supreme being of the land or the creature, very powerful and immense. It's always depicted as on the top, and usually underneath of it is the depiction of Sasquatch. And you can see in this one is faces and stuff. It's supposed to depict a Sasquatch or wild man of the woods. And in some totem poles, they have orcas underneath the Thunderbird because the Thunderbird would actually eat orcas and whales and different things of the Pacific Northwest. The Thunderbirds would also eat Sasquatch. And so they thought Thunderbirds are real. They thought the Sasquatch is real, and they put them on their totem poles. So let's pull up another one. So here's another one with a Sasquatch underneath of it. It's just very interesting that they actually have these out there. And if you ask about them, they'll tell you, yeah, that's a Thunderbird, it's a Sasquatch. Yeah. Yeah, there's an earlier video I did, very early video I did of my Stickman encounter. And I go into the full story detail of that. Stickman is not, or what I've seen, isn't really depicted in Native American culture unless you consider it to be a Wendigo, or there's actually other creatures, which I can't remember their names right now, but they were said to live in the dunes. They were depicted as hairy but skinny. But if you want to hear me talk about that, I think the video is The Encounter with the Unknown, I believe is the title. It's an early video. It's a very, very early video. I do show some different clips showing similar creatures to what I've seen. And then I finally tell the story of what happened. But I got a picture of the closest thing the closest resemblance of what it is. And it's of this. And while this picture might, I think they might have proved it is fake. When this first came out, this is what I seen. Very humanoid person, very skinny, bald. Its arms, all the way down to its wrists, were extremely skinny enough that I could break over my knee like a stick. So I called it the Stickman. So this is a very good representation of what I seen. Now here's a picture, which I like. I find extremely fascinating. And this one is, you can see the Thunderbird on top, followed by a Sasquatch, and then a human at the bottom. And you can see that the Sasquatch is definitely not a person. It actually has fangs, huge nose and nostrils, and very wide, deep-set eyes. And you can find a lot of these pictures in totem poles in the Pacific Northwest, where these were depicted a lot more than any other region, really. And possibly the tribes from Canada along the more north you go, I think they have totem poles too. They depict the same things, and it's usually the Thunderbirds are on top, followed by Sasquatch or even whales and orcas sometimes, all the way down the list. And they have different animals, and they had different representations and meanings for these animals, but usually the very top of the totem pole was the most powerful entity. I just find it fascinating that the Sasquatch is almost embracing the person. You can see that the Sasquatch is sitting down or bent down, extremely, just massively overpowering the person. So a lot of people know this. A lot of people don't know about these things. But you can ask these tribes, and they'll tell you, yeah, it's depiction of Sasquatch. And it's baring its teeth and stuff, and it has canines. Actually, about the same position as our canines that we have. Very interesting, though. So let me read a little bit about the Thunderbirds from the Algonquin language group of Native American tribes. And they called them different names. They called them Ononeki or Pinzasai. And they actually have a lot of different spellings, a lot of different ways to say this. Nimni, or Nimni. So you have one tribe saying num nini, or shorter version, Nimni. So the thunderbird is a giant mythological bird common to the northern and western tribes. Thunder is caused by the beating of their immense wings. Although thunderbirds are very powerful beings, they rarely bother humans and are treated with reverence by the Ojibwe people. Animniki, different spelling, literally means thunderer, and Bizne means the great bird. And of course, I'm butchering those pronunciations, but it's just fascinating that you have hundreds and thousands of different tribes that recognize this creature, and even though they don't speak the same language, they have names for these birds, and it's usually with thunder or the great big birds. And it's very fascinating that you have different cultures, different languages spread out geographically across the whole U.S. talking about the same creatures, as if it's real, as if it's a real living, breathing creature. And they, of course, they do regard this as a thunder spirit or a wind spirit sometimes. A lot of Native American cultures were very spiritual. They consider the spiritual world as real as the real world, and was in this world too. It wasn't separated. You have a lot of different spiritual aspects to a lot of different normal animals, and reasons why. Like the dog, why the dog was the man's best friend, and why the raccoon has the little blacks on its eyes and stuff. A lot of different spiritual meanings. All right, so I am going to play a little video. I played this one before, and I have the full video. It's 7 ancient teachings. If you just type in 7 ancient teachings under my videos, it should pop up, and it talks about different teachings that they associated with different animals and why the animal was associated with that. So we're going to play this real fast clip that you guys are going to find very interesting.
fourth teaching that we were given was the teaching of honesty that was represented by the one they call Sabe or Bigfoot. Honesty to our people meant that you learn to speak from your heart, get out of your head, get out of your mind, because your mind is gonna lead you many times opposite of what the heart is trying to express. To be honest is to be able to be true to your word. So that Sabe was always there to offer that inspiration, in being honest. How to be honest. Now that's a good one, that one. I remember growing up and, the elders, whenever they agreed to something, they would shake their hand and say, yeah, it'll be done. They didn't need to write on paper, on any agreement or contract. Their contract was their heart, because the truth was spoken from their heart. And the old people would always say, is that you learn to speak from the heart.
So wasn't that just fascinating that they attributed honesty with Bigfoot? And I think that is kind of interesting because in modern days, being honest about finding Bigfoot, presenting evidence, it's very intriguing to me that it represents honesty to them. And honesty, they were seeing this creature as real, and they attributed it to being honest. So were they lying, or were they being honest about seeing this creature? But not only this creature, other creatures. And they talk about different representations, like the bear and the beaver representing different stuff. But Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or Sabe, which is an Algonquin word for Bigfoot, Sabe was honesty. And so Sabe, I'm sure a lot of people probably have heard. It's kind of getting more famous from How to Hunt. Is throwing it out there. I use Sabe when I'm in the woods. I call them that, of course, because that's the word that the natives from this region called them. But that word doesn't work across the whole United States because the language group is mostly the Great Lakes region, so it's not going to work down in Texas. It probably might not even work in parts where British Columbia and stuff. I know that's the very outer reaches of the Algonquin language group. And so my suggestion is, if you wanted to learn the Native American word for Sasquatch in your area, is to study which native tribes are in the area and what they called it. And a lot of Native American language is extinct, gone. There is no records. There's nothing that you can learn from. They're totally gone. But the ones that do remain, even if it's not right in your area, but it's fairly close, I personally think that it could work in your region. I've used Native American greetings and different other words when out in the field, and it actually has gotten some pretty good results. We've actually had stuff thrown at us. We've had movement. We've had deliberate movement answering to a Native American greeting. We've had stuff being thrown into a creek, a big old rock splash up. It's never gotten us responses in language, but it's definitely, I feel, helped get them closer, more at ease, possibly. I don't know if they do. It seems like they do recognize the words and what we're trying to say. And this would be, of course, Sasquatch would have to teach its people this native language because it hasn't been used as much. It hasn't been used in the last 100 years at least. But ever since the Trail of Tears, when they forced all the natives out of Michigan, most of the tribes out of Michigan, it hasn't been used. So if they do recognize these Native American words and language that we try, they are passing this down several generations, and you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of years of passing this down, because the white people came on 1600s. The French were here all through the 1700s in Michigan and in Canada. And so the Sasquatch, would have to have learned that before the white people came here, and still taught it to their people through the modern age. And so we're trying to further research this and try to prove in a way that yes, they do recognize what we're trying to say and what we are saying in the native languages, and that they are responding to it. We also speak English, so sometimes I translate into English what I'm trying to say too. Got responses from that, so it's very interesting. You can find a lot of Native American languages, if they're still available, online, because a lot of tribes are they're not having their languages, they're dying out basically, and they don't have enough people to keep it going, and they don't have enough interest from Americans to learn and to keep it going, so they're putting it actually online to preserve it in a way that it's there. So you can find a lot of different languages online for free, but there is countless languages that are lost, that were never preserved or recorded by the white people. They never translated, and just totally gone. And so you have, you're talking about thousands of different cultures that were wiped out. All the Native Americans that we know today are the ones that survived everything. And because they survived, we know a little bit about their history, and we know a little bit about their languages, a lot actually. And so these people are trying to preserve their languages, and you can learn and study, and it's hard, it's not easy, but it's not impossible. All right, I think I got a couple more pictures to show, and so we're going to talk about the Lovelock Caves and the giants that were found there. And these giants, the story comes from, I just had her name, I just forgot it, but it comes from a female Paiute. I think she's a princess or the chief's daughter. She wrote, I think this was in the 1800s, about her people's history of Lovelock Cave. This is when the giant skeletons were found after pioneers excavated massive amounts of guano, bat poop, out of the cave. They found these giant skeletons actually burnt up. They found actually duck decoys, very old duck decoys, and netting, I believe, and fishing instruments, which we'll get into in a second. But she said that they were a race of cannibal giants, red-haired giants that would eat them. They would eat the Paiute. They would also eat themselves. They would eat the dead, but they would eat the Paiutes until the legends is one day all the tribes, the Paiute and some other tribes of that area, got mad and made war and drove these giants out of the area, but also drove some of these giants into Lovelock Cave. And of course, they piled the entrance. Let me pull pull a picture up. They piled the entrance full of wood, and they set it on fire. And they called out to them. They said, "Come out, surrender." But none of them came out when they asked. So they lit the cave on fire. So this is the entrance to Lovelock Cave. And they lined this with fire. Here's the actual cave entrance. And they called out to these people as the smoke is filtering and is burning, and so they called out them to surrender. And after they didn't, of course, they lit on fire and smoked, and there were some individuals that did try to come out, and they were said to have shot them with arrows until they were dead. And then everyone that was in the cave died. And so they left this cave alone, and the cave was filled up. I think it was like 20 feet full of guano or something. And so the pioneers came over, and guano was a very high value resource. So they excavated and took all the guano out, and they started finding these artifacts and these giant skeletons. And they couldn't figure out, what was going on, what were they. And so some of these skeletons were shipped to the Smithsonian, never to be seen again. Some of these skulls and skeletons were preserved at a local museum, where they were on display for a long time, until one day they were replaced by the skulls that you see now if you went there, which are normal human skulls. So I'm going to pull up a picture. And this picture was taken by Don Monroe, who is I would say a researcher of all sorts of things. He's a pretty hardcore guy. He's up in age now, but he was granted access. And while these were on display, he took these pictures, and as you can see, very giant skull. In one of the, and it's not in this picture, but there's another picture floating around where the skull was so big that it could fit over your head like a helmet, like a football helmet. And these were on display in this museum for the longest time. And until one day, I don't know what happened, they took them away, and they started displaying fake skulls, saying that these were the skulls found in the cave. And so the official narrative changed to not giants that were found, but regular Native Americans that were found. That, the story is the same, that, went to war with his other tribe, and they, got burnt in this cave. But the native stories say that they were giants, red-haired giants. And so the very interesting thing is they found these duck decoys and these fishing instruments in this cave. But that lake was dry for a number of hundreds of years. I can't remember the exact number of years, but I want to say, 500 plus to up to 1,000 years, where that lake was dry. So when the lake was actually filled with water, these giants were using these decoys and stuff, and they have different stories of fighting these giants while the water was still risen, and that the natives would surround the lake, and these giants, this other race of people, would be on flotation devices, and every time they got too close to the shore, the natives would run over there and shoot them with the arrows and force these things back out into the middle of the lake until they, died. And But there was a lot of different conflict going on in that region for a number of hundreds of years or more. And it was said that these giants came down from the northern rivers down to this area, and that when they finally exterminated them all, some were able to go back up the river, and some went to the cave. And it's very fascinating because the official story is they're just Native Americans, and the duck decoys are some of the oldest in the Americas ever found, very intricate and stuff. But they weren't built by the natives. They were built by this tribe of giants with advanced technology, with very advanced craftsmanship. So let's pull up another picture. And there's a lot of different stories of Native Americans going battle with these giants, red-haired or black-haired giants, and a lot of stories, even some of the Bigfoot stories of the Bigfoot attacking different tribes. And again, these tribes push these Bigfoot, and in other stories, red-haired giants into caves, lining it with wood and setting them on fire. There's several stories of this exact same thing happening in different regions with different cultures of tribes speaking different languages, and yet they have very similar stories. Now here's a pretty old and famous photograph. Now the background story of this is not very clear. I've heard several different stories of where this was found. Some people say this was found in Lovelock Cave. Others was a different cave. That's not important. What is important is I think this is pretty legitimate. This was taken. This was a photograph taken, and it depicts a female. I assume it's a female. I've always thought it was female. Maybe it's just me, but the way it looks and stuff. But you can tell that this is a giant person. This is not a small person. And I know back then people were very short. 6 foot. I'm 6 foot. That was pretty tall back then. And this thing is, about 7, 8 foot. I find it fascinating how very human it looks. It's not bulky. It's not massive. It's very humanly proportioned to how tall it is. But boy, man, that face, that face could kill. It doesn't look human, But this body was preserved very, very, fairly well. It actually looks to that. It appears to have clothing on. And this is one of these photos where back in the day when they're discovering all these giants and skeletons and all these different artifacts and stuff that they found, these guys were smart enough and lucky enough that they took a picture. And this is the only picture I've ever found depicting one of these ancient giants. I don't think it's a Sasquatch. Although I don't know. Usually these red-haired giants are not depicted as fully hairy. Sometimes they actually have pale skin. And so Sasquatch are obviously very hairy and a lot different. These red-haired and black-haired giants were said to have built fortifications from the East Coast all the way out to the West Coast. They were in the Grand Canyon, but they were on the mountaintops, the hilltops of the Appalachian Mountains, and they were said to have built fortresses there. And that that these giants would eat the people. They eat all these Native American tribes and would enslave them and try to rule over them. And we also have the mound builders, or the copper mound builders, which a lot of stories were depicted as when they dug into these mounds, they found these giant skeletons, 8 foot tall or more, with copper axes. They had copper jewelry. They had advanced metalworking technology that no Native American tribe has ever found to have that degree of metalworking or advanced technology compared to the mound builders or these giants. And the official story of the mound builders were that they were just a Native American tribe that was more advanced than the surrounding tribes. The Mississippi mound builders is what the official story is, what they call them. And they had their territories from the Mississippi all the way up to the upper portion of the Upper Peninsula. And we actually have certain caves in Michigan, in the Upper Peninsula, where the copper is so pure that it can be traced, and it's only found in this part of the world, in the upper parts of Michigan. It is the only deposit spot in the entire world where it's so pure of copper. And they have tested Bronze Age weapons and found that the copper used to make those weapons came from this exact spot in Michigan, thus proving an ancient trade system going on, fueling the Bronze Age, certain weapons and stuff that were found. And so you have that right there already proves so many official narratives wrong, that there was no ancient people here trading. The Greeks never came here. How did the copper get over there? How was this such pure copper made into Bronze Age weaponry when the New World wasn't discovered yet? So if you look into these ancient stories from Native Americans, even in Greece, some of these odysseys and stories of this ancient land, of these mysterious places of monsters and stuff, could be the Americas in the New World. And they found Roman swords, Roman coins in, was it Illinois? On the Mississippi. They find these out of place artifacts here in the U.S. that totally blows away the official history narrative. And I find it very fascinating that it's covered up. That the land that we're on right now has so much mystery about it that they just cover it up. They just don't want us to know. It will blow away the official narrative. It actually gets into more biblical stuff. Yeah, it just, why are they hiding all this? It's just very interesting. Let me get another picture pulled up. I think I got one more. But it's just, the Native Americans told of these ancient, very advanced giants who knew masonry and built fortresses made out of stone. They did wear copper armor and copper axes that were bigger than any man could wield. And they were said to have ruled this land and enslaved the people. And basically they would eat the natives, but in their bloodlust and in their greed for power, they made the Great Spirit, which is the god of Native Americans tribes. They call it the Great Spirit. They have different names for it, of course, but the Great Spirit got mad and crumbled their empire. And it was said that they went to war with each other. The red-haired ones went to war with the black-haired ones, whatever. They had such great calamity that they've had a civilization breakdown and that it was said that the remainder of them became wild, and they were never ever to rise again. And so it's been speculated, of course. I theorized somewhat that, what if these giants, became wild, they became a wild people, is that related to Sasquatch? I don't know. I think it's very interesting. You have very similar stories of Sasquatch being cannibal giants, eating people, but the red-haired giants aren't really depicted as hairy, and they're not really depicted as Sasquatch. So what do we got? All right. So here we have a Native American costume actually depicting Sasquatch. And in a lot of different cultures, the masks they have for Sasquatch is depicting is just like this, where the lips are protruding and making a sound or a howl or a call. In a lot of different tribes, they have the same depiction of the face, almost like kissing, howling and stuff. And of course, this person is all hair, covered in hair, very giant hands, very giant head, pronounced very massive eyeballs. And a lot of different tribes depict Sasquatch as this. A lot of different tribal masks look like this. And again, to them, this was very real. In a lot of their oral traditions, they talk about Sasquatch. They talk about all these other stuff that officially we don't accept. If you try to research the history of any Native American tribe by the official story, most of the history starts as soon as the white people made contact with that tribe, or they go back a little bit more, hundreds of years, and typically depict them as hunter-gatherers, and that's what they did for the rest of the whole millennia while they were here. But in fact, the native origin stories and their own traditional stories of themselves go back, you're talking thousands of years. As soon as these tribes came over the land bridge, they have stories of that. They have stories from then all the way now. And it's not officially recognized. It's just myth and legends. It's not real. But this is their literal history of their people. And I think you can find a lot of interesting stuff by researching this. And it paints a very different picture of the history of the U.S. than the official story. It's actually pretty dark and dangerous type of world that was the U.S. back then. All right. For those who've stuck around and listened to all the native talk, I'm going to show you some interesting pictures. And this was a picture taken by my good buddy Vala. He's part of the group, and has the Gumshoe Guys Corner, Michigan Bigfoot and Reports Facebook group. And the long story short on this is he was out with Bob Dago, which is a Godfather Michigan researcher. They were in the area, and they were Bob was looking at stuff, bent down, and Val actually I think he was looking around and he spotted this creature. And there's actually two creatures in this picture. There is one in the tree, which is very easy to see. And right below that, to the right, is a Sasquatch that is behind a tree. And so Val actually seen the one on the ground and became very uneasy. He said he felt different emotions that were not his own. And so he took a series of pictures, snap, and got this, and got very lucky. Extremely lucky. And I think this is probably one of the best Sasquatch pictures out there that unfortunately isn't being spread around and isn't really well known. So I did an enhancement of this stuff. And I'm going to show you this other picture. And yes, I drew a red circle around it because, people are having a hard time seeing this thing in the original picture. So I, started drawing the red circles, and then I blew it up. And this is the creature that is on the tree that Val did not see. And then hopefully you guys can see the detail of this, but what else is that? A very humanoid face. The color appears to be blondish brown. It's on the side of a tree. So what do you guys think about this picture? I think it's, to me, after looking at this and enhancing it, I think it's probably one of the best pictures I've ever seen. And coming from Val, one of the most legit guys I've ever met, I know this is the real deal 100%. This is not fake. This is not hoax. This is not misidentification. He has years of experience in law enforcement. And when he seen this creature, he was scared. He had to leave. And Val, was in law enforcement for 25 years and had a lot of experiences, grisly experiences, gruesome experiences. But seeing this creature, he's seen the one on the ground. He never even seen this one up in the tree until he took the picture and looked at it. But seeing this creature, he felt a primal fear, and he had to leave pronto. Where's the face? It's hanging off the tree, upright. Me looking at this, I can see the eyes. I can see the face, the eye sockets, I guess. People do have hard times seeing these things. But this is as good as this picture is going to get for this creature. Now that, I don't know. I find it very easy to see. I can spot it. I've had a lot of people say, well, this is this and this is that, and it's it's a porcupine on the tree. Well, this is down south here in Michigan, and we actually don't have porcupines this far south. Not anymore. But this creature is actually massive. I believe it was about 8 foot up the tree, and by the size of the tree compared to the size of that, it's a pretty decent sized creature. I can't remember what he said. He thinks the creature size is. My guess it's man size at least. It's not a small animal. That's for sure. If you look at its arm, that's definitely not a porcupine arm. That's a pretty big arm. But this is a legit picture. I think it's probably one of the best I've seen, coming from a person I know and I've been in the field with and I trust. I trust as legit, who knows his stuff. Val actually is a data miner and has researched this for a number of years and has the biggest data collection out of than anyone I really known or have come across. Certainly in Michigan and most likely in the whole U.S. actually. Val has gathered over 1,500 reports in Michigan. The earliest being from the 1600s, from the French army dispatching military letters back to France talking about Sasquatch. Actually, a whole tribe of Sasquatch moving across the land. It's a very interesting story. I've already, I think I did a video. It's called Campfire Stories. It's one of the first ones. And we're all around the campfire. And Val is talking about several different stories. Very fascinating stuff. But he has over 1,500 reports in Michigan. The most out of any researcher or person I know of. And he has 126 data points on Sasquatch profiling. And you have a number of different things. It's very interesting stuff. That could be a whole nother show, actually. It might actually just get Val on to talk about that with you guys, because it's very interesting stuff, and no one else is doing it like Val. He is actually profiling Bigfoot like a serial killer, and he has a number of interesting data points and a number of interesting data points that you can see correlations with. Also a number of sightings. We know from Val's data that the 2 best months to see a Sasquatch in Michigan are July and October. They are the most reported 2 months out of the whole year in Michigan. October being a lot of when hunting starts. You have archery season. You have a lot of people out in the woods. And in July, you actually have a lot of people in the woods hiking stuff. But July seems to be a very, very, very active month for Sasquatch. Moving around, it's been speculated that it might be a birth month here in Michigan because there's a lot of babies crying in the woods reported in July, and so we're trying to get more data points to hopefully show this. So anyways, this was a picture that I think is legit, real, 100%. I think it's pretty dang clear enough that you can tell that it's not really any other known animal. What other animals have a face like that, have a big arm like that? And how is the Sasquatch holding itself onto this tree? I find that very interesting. Yes, that face is above the branch, going diagonal. Yes. Below that is the right arm. And it's hanging off the tree, looking at Val. Both these creatures were looking at Val. He only seen the one standing up, which I've done enhancement on, but you can't really see any good details. You can see that there's something hiding behind a smaller tree. It looks like, but this one you can see a lot more detail. You actually see a head. You can see a face. I can see that there's eyeballs right there, eye sockets. When I seen this, I instantly knew, like, holy crap! This isn't an everyday animal. This is probably a Sasquatch. This is legit. And unfortunately, it isn't getting recognized. It's not getting passed around in the Bigfoot community at all. I've tried it a few times. It just never gets traction. People, say it's a porcupine, or it's, it's just a person in a costume or something. It's frustrating. You got so many hoax pictures and hoax videos out there that when you actually try to show something that's legitimate and get it passed around, it's not taken seriously. Oh, and I drew a red circle around it, so it must be fake. Some people just can't see stuff. They just cannot see it. You have to point it out. It doesn't really mean it's fake. This isn't a blob squatch. This isn't pareidolia. This is a real animal. Yeah, it's very weird of how it's holding itself. I mean, I don't know. It's very interesting of how it's holding itself up without seemingly wrapping its whole arms around the tree trunk. I don't know. Very interesting. Hmm. That's weird. My phone says the broadcast ended, but I'm still going. Huh. So if I cut out or anything weird happens, I'm not sure what's going on. Well, here it is. It's fine. Huh. Weird. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Whatever. So yeah. I mean, I think that's legit from my experience and knowing the person. I mean, that's probably as legit as it gets to me. A stand-up guy, honest guy, no nonsense guy either. This guy isn't a BSer. He's no nonsense guy. And when he says, it scared him, better believe that it's pretty awesome experience that caused him to have that much fear. When you're talking about a guy who's dealt with a lot of stuff and seen a lot of stuff, and so for that to freak him out like as much as it did, it says a lot. Very, very, very primal fear going on. All right, I'm gonna pull that picture up. I mean, how can you? I mean, I guess people have different opinions. They see different stuff, but I don't understand how you could say that's a broken part of a tree. I mean, to me, maybe it's just me. I've been doing this for a lot of years. I analyze a lot of stuff. I look through a lot of videos, look through a lot of pictures. Maybe I just can see it because of the experience, but it's not a broken off tree though. Like Val seen the one standing on the ground, and in the pictures, it's not. You can't even really see it. And he said he was looking at him, the blackest eyes ever, staring at him. So here's a little bit better picture for scaling and reference. I mean, that to me that definitely doesn't look like no tree that's broken off from rot behind the healthy tree. I mean, you can see eyeballs, you can see a hairline, you can see that the face. I don't know if the face is hairy, but you can see a hairline. It's not going to be good enough to prove Bigfoot at all. Of course not. 100% not going to prove Bigfoot. But I think this is extremely good evidence of Bigfoot. Evidence is not proof of Bigfoot. I mean, maybe it's just me. I mean, I can. It is what it is. I see eyes. I see eye sockets, hairline to the face. Obviously, it has a hand, an arm, or an arm on the tree, with its bottom portions to the tree. It is what it is, and I think knowing Val and how professional he is, and he takes this very seriously. This is not fake. This is not a tree rot. He wouldn't have took pictures of the Sasquatch that he sees on the ground. And in this picture, it's at the very bottom right. That little black thing. That's actually a creature that he's seen. He didn't see this creature in on top. And if Val didn't see the Sasquatch, he wouldn't have took these pictures at all. He's not randomly taking pictures of the woods and then trying to find Sasquatch in the pictures. He's seen the creature, and then he snapped in an arc. Snap, 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 snap. And he got very lucky and got two. And the one he didn't see is the one that shows up the best on the pictures. And I get that's your opinion, that it's a rotted off tree off behind it or whatever. Everyone has their opinions. I have mine. I think it's legit. I don't know. Can't prove it to anyone. I'm not really trying to prove it. I think it's one of the best pictures out there, honestly. I mean, you look at all these other pictures and it's blob squatches, or it's random people taking pictures out there and then finding Sasquatch in the picture without even visually seeing a Sasquatch while they're in the field. Anyone can do that. But this is an area that has a lot of Sasquatch activity and sightings and documentation. Also, Lost Cryptids has been out there, had their own experiences, not in this exact spot, but the general area. We actually have some private property that we actually have gotten a lot of stuff, interesting stuff, not definitive stuff, not, proof worthy, but, we caught, and I played stuff on here. We caught audio of a tree being pushed over as I'm sleeping. We've had rocks thrown at us. We've had calls. We've had a Sasquatch individual run between cars during a severe tornado storm in the middle of a downpour, running in between cars. We've heard drumming, bump, 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 in different spots around our camp. Anyways, yeah, this is in Michigan. This is in southeast Michigan. But Sasquatch seems to be everywhere in Michigan, and I'll explain that in a minute. So Michigan actually has a long history of Sasquatch, all the way from the founding of Detroit, Fort Detroit. There's actually reports made by the military of old Fort Detroit of Sasquatches climbing over the stockade to steal, I think it was food or something. You have reports from the French sending them all the way, this is the 1600s, late 1600s, sending them back to France saying that there is these tribe of hairy people moving across Michigan and actually go down to Detroit. They actually are in the river systems swimming, and they go all the way to Detroit. But everywhere they go, the crops die, the dogs die, and actually the bells toll. It's very interesting stuff. The French reported this, a military report. They took this very seriously, that the Sasquatch, these Sasquatches came towards Detroit, and the locals chased them all the way across, was that Lake Sinclair? Yeah, all the way towards Harrison Island. I don't know. It's late. Over across Detroit, across that lake towards Canada. On the Canadian side, there's actually a swath of land that's very marshy and swampy. They chased him to this island, and then these Sasquatch disappeared. But it was important enough that the French did a military letter, sent it all the way back to France as real as that it happened. It's very important. The French military sent it. It was very important information. That is the first reported documentation of Sasquatch in Michigan from the late 1600s. In modern times, the way Michigan is set up, and actually a lot of Midwestern states, is it's mostly farmland from, and do it like this. So from my knuckles down, this is mostly all farmland with sporadic chunks of woods. The thumb, same thing. You have a huge chunk of wilderness. It's not even that huge, really. You have chunks of woods along the Cass River, where the Bigfoot was filmed crossing the river, right? But the outside is all farmland. But these creatures have learned to thrive in the environment because modern people, 10 o'clock, time to hit the bed, turn the TV on, shut the lights off. They aren't outside. Modern people are not outside during the night. They're not in the woods. They're not walking in the woods. They're not walking across farmland. And so you have a very good opportunity for these creatures to travel across the whole state, undetected, unseen, All they need to do, especially in the countryside, you got, these houses are not next to each other, and you got farming fields and you got chunks of woods in the middle. They're just traveling through and they're just passing houses. It's not that hard. Actually, when I was younger and a teenager researching this, I would go across as far as I could go, traveling the land, going between houses and you're going on different people's property, like a Sasquatch, undetected. It's not that hard. It's actually extremely easy. And these creatures can, how many miles can they walk in a night? No one really knows. But I know that I can personally do 20 miles in 10 hours at a fairly easy pace and taking a couple rests. Sasquatch, being fundamentally bigger and longer strides, are definitely going to be able to do that, no problem. So 20 miles is nothing. I mean, you might as well times 2 that, or 3. Now you're talking about 40 or 60 miles a night. How far can they really go? And so in Michigan, you're never more than 4 miles from any body of water, pond, lake, rivers, creeks. You're never more than, 200 and, I don't know the exact number, but it's it's under 250. You're never more than 250 miles from any of the Great Lakes, wherever you're at in Michigan. And so these creatures are easily able to, especially at nighttime. I mean, no one is outside guarding their property, standing watch. These creatures are going in between houses on the countryside. It's easy. They're not really close, like suburbs. And they're traveling and they're going on the farmland. They're staying in the farm fields. I mean, it's October. Corn is up. It's fairly big. You got all these plants and agricultural crops in the right season. They're mowing down. It's just like the deer. They're eating all the crops right now. They're hanging out in the farming fields because why? You can't go on those private properties. If you do, you're trespassing. A farmer's not going to let people just randomly go walk in their field. And how often does that farmer actually go and inspect those fields on foot looking for people or looking for anything? He doesn't. Most of the time that doesn't happen. And so you have great opportunity for Sasquatch to go through these corn mazes, as you can say, finding the best habitats that they already know from experience. They're able to eat the crops. They're able to hunt the food with relatively ease, and they can stay out of people's sight and away from hunters on private property. Sasquatch observe people. That's what they do. That's what they've always done. That's what they do to survive in the woods. They observe everything. A Sasquatch doesn't, instantly know a person is there because they are telepathic and they know a person's there. They are set up in strategic points, especially in trailheads. They're watching the type of people that come into the area. They have sentries standing guard. They know when you come into that spot because they are watching for a person to come into that area where people normally come into. And so they observe these private properties. They observe the routine of the farmer to see what he's doing on each month or season on his land. They know a set routine. Farmers have pretty good set routines. What they're doing in each season, what they need to do. And they know which private properties are more safe, which don't get hunted on, which private properties are with older people, which don't go outside as often, and they certainly don't go into the backwoods. Maybe the grandkids come over, and they are the ones that go exploring in their woods. The Sasquatch know that, that grandkid ain't coming over all that often. Or, no one's hunting that property. So they're finding these private properties, these farms that are relatively safe, that they can spend during the day. Because at nighttime they can roam around and they can go anywhere they want. But during the day, it's very limited on where they can travel and how far they can travel without being seen, because obviously people are running around a lot more, driving, more active, doing a lot more things during the daytime. So they have to hunker down. So they need to find a spot that's relatively safe, that they're not going to be bothered by humans for at least a day or two, depending on how much they want to rest and how comfortable they feel in the area, food sources, all that. But if they can go into a spot that they stay in at least a day or two without being seen or messed with, they're going to remember that spot. They're going to come back to that spot. They're going to come back to these private properties which don't get messed with as often, or different seasons. You might have a piece of property that this guy, he hunts the crap out of. He hunts every single day, small game, deer, back to small game, archery season, gun season, antlerless gun season. But the guy isn't in those woods out of hunting season. So they would avoid that place during hunting season, but would come back when that person isn't in those woods. And they would observe. And the Sasquatch from Val's data points show that they seem to be, I just forgot what I was going to go, not go with this, but the right wording. Man, I hate that. They go back to places that they know and that they've observed and been and feel comfortable with. They are a creature of habit. So they go back to these places where they have observed and know and feel they're safe. And of course, this is always changing. You have people moving, you have older people dying, people buying the houses, your grandkids come of age. Now they want to hunt. So you have these changing landscape and people and the routines of people, but they observe throughout the year as much as they can to figure out when is the best time to hide in this spot and for how long, and what's going on, what kind of people is there. If they find a piece of property where this guy is drunk all the time and just randomly shoots stuff, probably not going to hang out in that property very often unless they really need to. And there's so much space and there's so much land, there's so much farmland spread out that they can travel from one side of the state to the other. They can travel from the south end of the state all the way up north, and crossing up to the UP from the Lower Peninsula. It gets a little tricky, actually, because you have a lot of development on the coast. And I think it's about 5 miles, the straightest point. But they can swim. They're very good swimmers. And there's reports of Sasquatches on the shores of the Upper Peninsula, looking at Mackinac City at the Mackinac Bridge. During winter, very cold winters, the lake does actually freeze over, and it's well known that different animals cross and venture from the Upper Peninsula down to the Lower Peninsula, from Canada on over. Wolves, that's how wolves get down here in northern Michigan, is they walk on the ice. We do know that black bears will swim from the Upper Peninsula down to Lower Peninsula. And moose are, there has been, I think moose have been seen doing that. Anyways. Yeah, the Bigfoot reports in Detroit. Yes, there is actual multiple reports. Like I said, they're creatures of habit, and they used to be in the area and follow the Detroit River. And so they have this, for whatever reason, they do return to these spots. And yes, there's reports of Sasquatches on the edges of the dilapidated ghettos, on the shorelines. There's reports of them uh, being in Metro Detroit, not Metro Detroit, I guess Greater Detroit, at an airport next to a suburb. And it's reported that when the plane or jets take off or come landing, that Sasquatches scream. And it's a very small chunk of woods that, you know, they're not there all the time. They're not living there, but, you know, they come there and they stay. And my theory is because it's private property, but it's next to an air base, and, you know, people, it's a secure area. And if, you know, you're trespassing around the airport, I mean, you can get in big trouble. So there's no people walking around there, you know, teenagers, I'm sure, kids. But it's another spot where people just don't occupy, where people don't really go. And they sneak in through this spot in the middle of at night, crossing roads in between suburb houses to get to the spot. And at Detroit, they actually have feral dogs that are in packs running around. There was an old National Geographic show special on this. I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's, you know, National Geographic Detroit feral dogs. And it was a bunch of domesticated animal dogs that are running it wild in packs and interbreeding with each other. So you have like German Shepherds breeding with pit bulls, breeding with like smaller dogs and stuff, and running wild and stuff. And I know the city has took a lot of steps to eliminate this, but there was, for a little while, there was a number of groups of packs of wild feral dogs running around the city and the more dilapidated parts of the city. These are the same spots where Sasquatches have been reported. So Sasquatches are, you know, from my experiences going into different places around Michigan, the population here is a lot, because I shouldn't be able to go into these different spots and have Sasquatch activity fairly easy and often as it. I mean, if it's a needle in a haystack, you know, I mean, we're getting pretty lucky. And so the population, the way we're being able to find these things and have interactions as often as we have been, being lucky, of course, in these certain areas, the population is definitely not a needle in a haystack. The population is very healthy, and there's a lot. It's not the same group, you know, following us everywhere we go. There's a lot of them, and they probably do travel great distances along the state. I mean, you know, 2 weeks, I'm sure in the 2 week time frame, they could probably go across the whole state. And they're in spots where people don't go. They're in swamps, marshlands, national forests, state forests. They're everywhere. And the very interesting thing about wetlands is that those are federal lands, federally protected lands also. And they make up all the rules and everything else. And these are the exact spots where Sasquatches are living and are at. So do they, I mean, obviously the government knows about them. They're not that dumb. They know about them, and they seemingly probably set aside these areas for them, you know. I mean, you don't own the wetland that's on your property. You don't. It's federal owned land, federally owned and controlled land. And it seems to be certain circumstances that they are knowingly setting aside this land for Sasquatch. And whatever kind of relationship is going on, we don't know whether they're trying to make them stay in these areas, or they're trying to like research them. They're trying to control the population. You do hear about them taking out rogue Sasquatches, as they say, or old groups. I mean, these are unconfirmed reports, usually. But anytime the government's doing secret stuff anyways, they're not going to flat out tell the people. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to even try to get freedom of information on that stuff. I mean, you got whole departments of government agencies that are not named, that are not listed, that are doing their own thing. A whole swath of things. Bigfoot is like the least of it, but there are definitely certain groups that are probably monitoring and solely formed for Sasquatch, possibly other cryptids, monitoring and taking them out if they're bad. There's a reason why it's classified. There's a reason why they don't tell us what's going on. And typically the government hides stuff for national security reasons. So if they're hiding Bigfoot or doing whatever, giving it land, monitoring, it's for national security purposes. So what is that? What is that? Does that mean that, as soon as Sasquatch is proven to be real, that it's gonna like cause civil unrest? I don't think so. So I think there's other things at play on why they keep this secret. And I don't think it's because of, the logging industry or the tourist industry or the outdoor recreational industry. I don't think it's because of that at all. Well, Val didn't zoom in and take a picture because he's scared to death. And he wants to leave and get out of there. He just snap. And told Val, we got to go. We got to go now. Val didn't see anything. He was looking at, I can't remember what he was looking at. It's been a while since I heard Val tell the story, but this was a retired law enforcement person diving into the Bigfoot world, and really his first outdoor research, going into outdoor and researching, seeing this thing, it was very traumatic for him. And so he was not in the mindset to just stand there and zoom in and take pictures and all this and all that. And he had a gun on him and stuff, and he wanted just to get out of there. Being a law enforcement officer, he has instincts that, that he listens to, that has got him out of dangerous situations. And in that situation, it was telling him to get out of there. But I've heard from, former government officials, agents that, they know about Bigfoot, of course. Now, the reason why they monitor and whatever they're doing is a mystery. But it's very well known that, there is, under the umbrella of a big government agency or department, there is unnamed, very classified groups or agencies that are, hush, are not known to the public, will never be known to the public, probably ever, that do a lot of crazy things for the national security. And Bigfoot's just one of them that they have under wraps. And you know what would happen if you know got a Bigfoot body? The government would come in and take it from you pretty fast too. Like, and you know why that is? Because they're monitoring us. They seem to be very interested in the Bigfoot community, so much so that I've been told that there's actual plants in different groups monitoring them. They watch different groups because of how close we're getting to whatever reason they have. We don't know. It must be pretty dang important if they are watching, little old us, average people doing average things, not really, it's not like we're a super celebrity where, information can be spread around the world just like that because we said it. So it's pretty big, must be a pretty big thing on why they're watching everyone. I mean, but yeah, I've been told that there is actual government plants in different Bigfoot groups, and there's trolls doing trolling. And they're trolling people. They're sabotaging groups, sabotaging them, causing conflict. I don't know why. It must be pretty dang important. And I know there's a lot of stuff going on, and I think that there's so much that that happens that American people just don't. They only know a very tiny percentage. We know this when there's like all this going on, and I understand that it is national security purposes, and maybe a lot of it is for the better. Who knows what's really going on, but it must be pretty damn important to keep them this hardcore locked down and actually infiltrating Bigfoot groups. Like, really? It must be pretty dang bad or crazy or I don't know what. But I've heard a lot of different things. I don't know if it's real or not, but I do know from personal firsthand experience that there is definitely government agencies out there watching and monitoring and even sabotaging people, and they don't like certain individuals talking, and they don't like certain individuals who are retired and doing Bigfoot stuff. I mean, yeah, if Bigfoot is actually attacking and killing people, I'm pretty sure the government agency would send out stuff because they don't want a panic, nationwide panic that, wow, there's this monster out there that eats people or whatever. We don't know that what kind of intelligence, what was all going on. Anyways, I've been working on a few things. Trying to put out. It's not a documentary. I'm just, I'm gonna put out, videos showing some good stuff, and I think you guys are gonna be surprised of what we actually got on film and some of the stuff that we've got. I filmed a red eye shine, self-illuminating red eye shine on camera, and one eyeball that does move away and disappear. But you're gonna be able to listen to full encounters of people seeing stuff. The audio, full audio I'm filming with a video camera, but it doesn't pick up, the full encounter of me and Jason's encounter up in the UP of actually watching Sasquatch, 2 different Sasquatches for 5+ minutes in around us and a whole slew of things. That's going to be coming out very soon. Waiting on some other people's documentaries to drop first because I don't want to spoil it because I'm nice like that. Like in Florida, when we went to Florida for the 168 Bigfoot expedition, I'm waiting on that to drop and stuff because I don't want to spoil it for you guys. I don't want to show stuff that is going to be in 168 that you guys don't need to see it here first. I don't want to spoil it. I know other people have released videos and stuff that okay, I mean that's good for them, but yeah, it is taking forever because I'm very indecisive, and when I think oh, it's pretty good this way, the next morning it's like that's I could have said this differently or on the video, so let me just redo it. And it's disheartening when you have former members that are gone and that you got to look through all the stuff and you don't like watching them. You don't want to look at them right now. That's kind of disheartening too. But definitely for the better. Anyways, if there's any questions, let's get some questions going. If not, I'm probably ending it. I'm not going to go 3 hours. But yeah, the rake. I've talked about that a number of times, which is basically the creature I seen. But it was before the rake creepypasta was created, though. So back when I had seen this creature, there was no creepypasta. There was no the rake. There was none of that. And picture I seen, that was the first picture that I seen that looked like it. The another good YouTube video, if you want to watch, that looks to be very similar to the creature I seen is the Fallen Angel of Catalina, Spain video. And it's a video of these 2 Spanish people in the woods. They're talking and they come across this humanoid creature, bald humanoid creature that turns around and looks at them. And they freak out and they run away. The creature is very similar to what I seen. Very humanoid, naked, very skinny type of creature. And so that video came out after my encounter, and I was like, holy crap, that's very similar to what I seen. That picture that I showed, which I'm pretty sure everyone thinks is fake, depicts very similar creature. Now, it's not all the same, but a very similar naked, bald humanoid, very skinny. I mean, its whole arms and stuff are like skinnier than my wrist. And being, a teenage full of hormones, I thought if I had to fight this thing, I'm going to break it over my knee like a stick. And that's why I called it the Stick Man. These creatures are in Michigan, along with Sasquatch. And I've also seen Dog Man, which been a 1-year anniversary now. I seen it the first week of October last year with my girl. And driving around that spot dozens and dozens of times over this year, I still can't believe that this Dog Man, and I hate that word, this wolf creature crossed the road in front of the car, went in the field, and stood up like human and continued to run. This creature was right next to a house in broad daylight, running like a person towards the woods. driving back to the spot dozens of times, I just still can't fathom that it did that in the middle of the day. And it was on purpose. It was waiting. It could have waited for the car to go by. It didn't need to run in front of the car, but it also didn't need to stand up either. Because if it never would have stood up, I would have thought it was a wolf. I mean, a huge wolf in lower Michigan. That would have been awesome of itself. But it stood up. It didn't need to stand up. It didn't need to cross in front of the car either, but it did. And it was kind of like showing us that, yeah, I'm this big, massive wolf, and, I can stand up too. I don't know, but it seemed like it was very on purpose. So you have three different cryptid creatures that I personally have encountered. Bigfoot being the most, because I researched that the most, and you have several cryptid creatures in Michigan, in lower Michigan, where no one ever thinks that Bigfoot is, let alone Dogman or whatever stickman creature is out there. This could be in the middle of any American state, in the country, farmland. This could be anywhere. So, you should always watch out, be careful, and be on guard, because you don't know if these creatures are dangerous. They definitely have the capability of being very dangerous and probably taking out people. We know Sasquatch definitely have the ability to. The Dogman I seen, it's the size of a large wolf, and when it stood up, it's at least 6 foot tall. I'm 6 foot tall. It's at least as tall as me or more, maybe 6-7 foot. It's pretty big creature. It's and the stickman thing, I think most physically fit people could probably take it on, but being a savage and whatever it's going to use to attack you, it's going to be a pretty bad fight. And over my years of research of figuring out what that is, I really don't know. It could be a Wendigo, I guess. Maybe it could be a ghoul. European folklore, it looks like a common ghoul or a goblin type of creature. Typically anything that's living in the wild, it's going to be fairly strong because they're using their muscles all the time. Even if it's skinny, and even animals are pretty strong. Pound for pound, animals are pretty damn strong compared to humans, pound for pound. So yeah, it's definitely not a fight you would want to get into, but it's a fight that I think I could come out on top though, compared to a Bigfoot. Yeah, a ghoul. It looks like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. It looked like that, but it was about 7 foot tall. It didn't have hair that I could see. It was just tree peeking at us and going like this. And my dad actually seen it. Went back inside, told him, and he came out and he lied and said it was, it was a long story short. My mom died. We just moved to this property pretty much. And I mean, we were there for a while, but like my dad didn't get home from Detroit until like late at night. And so me and my brother, who's 5 years younger than me, are there all day long. And, Bigfoot was okay, but that thing, no. So he lied and said he didn't see it, but he did see it, and he actually thought about grabbing the shotgun and going back out there. But my dad was like, that's just going to freak them out. And I'm not here until dinner time. I can't have them, freaked out every single day I come home. So he lied for the best interest of the family, which I think a lot of grown-ups would do. They lie about seeing any kind of creature out there because they don't want their family scared. I think that happens a lot. Only vibe I got was it was weird. My friend who was with me was freaking out. Didn't want nothing to do with it. Didn't want to be there. And he never did come back to that house again, ever again. But I would continue to go out and research and go by that tree. I mean, I never did see it, never did encounter it ever again. We'll do another show maybe and talk about the more spiritual aspect of all these creatures and everything, because a lot of people, and I've thought this at times too, that is, are these creatures like Nephilim? Are they spiritual entities? Evil spiritual entities? They're trying to deceive us and trick us and whatever. We don't know, but sometimes it seems like it could be all related and all that. And I think if it's all related, I don't think it's anything good. I think it's very bad. If it's all related and, it's all spiritual and, they can mind speak and do all sorts of stuff, I think it's pure evil. I don't think it's anything good at that point. Because if it's spiritual and it's intelligent, I'm religious, and if it doesn't sound like that would be from God. So brave, brave or stupid is what I've heard. No, I mean, I just go out there. I mean, I have fear like everyone else. I've been in very close situations next to a Bigfoot who was very mad at me, screamed at me, and I was pretty scared in that situation. Other situations, like up north, visually seeing them about 60 feet away and having them around us, I wasn't scared. I was cautious and on guard, but not scared. It all depends on the situation and what's going on. Honestly, I think I've been doing this for 18 years now, and started out when I was 13, going in the woods by myself at nighttime, full moon, half moon, no moon, don't matter. And most of the time, I would only carry a Bowie knife, and it's been very intimidating, but you just do it. You just push on and do it. I mean, it's not for everyone. And my mindset at that time, my mom died. I was out in those woods all the time. I wasn't really scared of anything until stuff happened. My first encounter scared the crap out of me. But I just love being in the woods. I love being in the woods. I feel like it, helps me, energy, and just relaxes me. And I always think every time I go in the woods and stuff, I always feel refreshed coming back out. I always feel refreshed. And studying Native American folklore and different stuff, and being partial Native, or a very small percentage. Actually, my arms are always tan, no matter what. They're always tan. Everywhere else, I'm pretty white. But I've always been fascinated with the cultural aspect of, the forests are alive, and they have energy about them. And we do know from scientific experimentation in Europe on certain forests that the trees do talk to each other. The same species of trees definitely talk to each other, communicate in their own way. And we know from experiments that music can play a big role in plant growth. We know that for a fact that certain music, like heavy metal, uh, will make the plant not grow as much compared to like listening to Beethoven and Mozart and stuff. Like that calming, soothing music actually makes trees grow faster and more healthier. And so I think there's a lot of direct and indirect relationships with the forest and with animals and humans, of course, that we just don't know enough about, and we can't register uh, as of yet. But the Native Americans always regarded, the forest as very spiritual places, very magical places. Everything was spiritual to them. Everything had spiritual meaning. The spirit world was very real, and it was on the same plane of existence that everything else was. Um, and they do have a lot of evil spirits taking many different forms, monsters, even animals. You can have a evil spirit that's in a wolf, or it's killing people, or in any kind of animal. And they they believed a lot in that kind of stuff. And I think there's a lot going on through all their history that is so fascinating, so awesome. I'm a big history buff. Like I loved back when the History Channel was the History Channel, not reality TV and Pawn Stars. They actually had real history stuff, real engineering marvels, engineering disasters, sorts of stuff that I ate up. And so, big history buff, learning all the kind of history of different cultures and stuff. But when it came to the Native Americans, there is no official history beyond a couple hundred years, like 1500s. I mean, if right now you go look up the history of Native Americans in your own state, they're probably only going to go up to the 1500s, and before that, they're just hunting and gathering. Very limited farm use, hunting and gathering from that period all the way from since they crossed the land bridge. With no, all these stories are not just made up. No relatively historical records that is taken seriously, like from anywhere else in the world. But they have very fascinating stories of their own history that I think should be taken a little bit more seriously. And it is pretty scary stuff, and it's very supernatural stuff, but it was very real to them. And these are the original inhabitants of the land, and I think that they knew what they were talking about, and they were seeing things that they knew were real. And so it's always fascinated me. That's why I've always been into Native American culture, history, everything. So, do I feel like I have a guarding entities and guarding energies over you? Well, I'm a Christian in faith, so I believe, of course, that. I'll tell you something I don't really tell a lot of people is out there, it does feel like, people can, it seems that Sasquatch definitely know people who are doing this. It seems like pretty fairly often that, they do, I don't know, being marked or whatever, but seemingly I've got lucky a number of times where it's just like, come on now. I mean, if they're not that big a population, how come we keep having stuff happening in different parts of Michigan, or seemingly they know that you're there. I don't know, but I think it's something to do with I don't know, something. All right, so next Thursday I'll probably do a show. I took a break from having people on um, because I didn't want my live shows to be just about encounters or having people on talking about encounters and stories and stuff. I don't want the channel's not about telling stories during the live shows. I did and do like interviewing people who have had encounters and stories, but I also want to interview other researchers and talk about research. Um, I like having people on so you can listen to and watch them as they tell their story, because you can watch and see if maybe you think they're lying and stuff, because you're watching their body language or whatever. It's not just I'm not reading a story, whether it's well, it's true or not, I don't know, I'm just reading it. Like I don't want to be like that at all. So if anyone's going to talk about their encounters, I definitely like them to have come on, and so people can watch and see them as they're telling the story. But I took a little break from that. I wanted to do more live shows by myself. Also, you don't have former members that are doing the show anymore. And I'm sure some people have noticed that. Very dang good reasons for that too. And I put up with a lot of stuff. I think having certain people host with me doesn't make us look good, actually. And I know for a fact that I definitely turned a cheek to some of that stuff, because when you're my friend and you got problems, I guess I overlooked some stuff, and it didn't make us look credible. So those people are not on here no more. You won't ever see them again. And we're trying to be more professional and be more of a professional group. And having a group going from 15 members all the way down to where we're at now, it was a good experience, good opportunity of growth, and of what I want in the group and what I don't want, and what I shouldn't put up with, and what I definitely not ever going to put up with again. Yeah, the people who have hosted with me were in the group, and they were my friends. But what I've learned from my experience is that I don't have a lot of friends, because people are people, and sometimes they really try to mess you over, try to get over, try to do you dirty. Even if you're your friends and you're really good friends, it seems like people get jealous. People want to be the top dog. They want to make all the decisions. And I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I'm not a strict dictator, and I've let people run with their ideas and stuff. And looking back on that, not a good idea at all. Looking now, so things definitely have changed. Definitely kicked people out. Don't need that crap. And if I can't trust you, you're not going to be in my group. I mean, it's just simple like that. You go behind my back and talking crap to other people, and you want to try to outright try to steal all this somehow. I don't need you in my group. You want to, do all this stuff and try to make money. It's not what we're about. I don't want you to be in the group. Yeah, having money would be awesome to fund all this and do all this and blah, 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 but it's not what we're about. Yeah, I mean, that's, it's sad. It sucks sometimes, but oh well. Better opportunities have opened up, and makes me want to take this more seriously. I mean, way seriously. Um, I take this very seriously. I mean, I don't even watch TV. We don't have cable. I watch YouTube, and we got Netflix and all that. But majority of my time watching anything is Sasquatch related, or it's history stuff, or it's stuff that I find interesting. And it's definitely not commercial TV. I no. So I take this very seriously, maybe too seriously sometimes, because I know my girl, she gets a headache from it, and but this is my life. I've been doing this for 18 years now. I've been in the woods. I've actually read books and studied and watched History Channel shows well earlier than when I was 13. I mean, I was like five or six when my dad actually started telling me about Sasquatch and all this other different stuff. And I used to watch shows on aliens and ghosts, and Sasquatch was my favorite. For some reason, I've always been fascinated with it. And so, yeah, I'm taking this extremely seriously now. And there's a lot of people in this community that present themselves as something that they're not. They present themselves as being the Sears hardcore researchers, but they're not at all. It's very disappointing. It's very frustrating. But it reaffirms witnessing those people that, just keep doing what I'm doing, trying to build ourselves better. Because when I'm in these woods and I'm out there, it's game on. I'm taking it seriously. We are going into the woods. We are going to go off trail. If we're on trail, we're going to be walking the trail. We're going to try to find stuff. We're going at night. There is no wimping out. There is no complaining that it's too hot out. There's too many bugs. Guess what? We're going to be here for however long we are. It's not going to get any colder. It's going to be hot. So just get used to it and get out there. The bugs, well, guess what? Bug spray. Oh, the bug spray don't work. Well, the bugs are going to be here no matter what. Deal with it. You're complaining that you're tired. You're complaining that it's too far of a walk or something. And maybe you should have built your body up stronger before the expedition, not during the expedition. I train. I work out. I prepare myself to be out there, and if a survival situation happens, I want to make sure that I'm as prepared as possible, physically, mentally, and everything else. I'm not going to be sitting on my butt months on end and then go out in this expedition and, be physically exhausted the whole time because I didn't work out and train. I didn't do anything. I just was a couch potato. That is very dangerous when you're out in the woods. It's very dangerous in general. I understand people have physical limitations. They have all sorts of stuff. That's fine. Okay, but if I think you're physically able and capable of, and you are complaining that it's too hot or it's too cold or blah, 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 maybe you shouldn't come on this stuff. We're out there to find evidence of Bigfoot. If you want to stay warm or stay cold, stay at home. If you don't want to get eaten up by bugs, stay at home. Don't go out there and research. And you know what really frustrates me is, people who just sit at camp all day and don't do anything. If you wanted to go camping, go camping. If you're out there to look for evidence of Bigfoot, get your butt up and go look for evidence. If you want stuff to happen to you, You got to get up and you got to go and you got to try. Nothing's going to happen to you if you sit at camp. Yes, they come to camp. Yes, stuff can happen. Yes, blah, 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 blah. But you know what happens more often is when you're out in those woods and you're by yourself or you're a very small group of people, you have stuff happen, then bring them back to camp. Don't just sit at camp hoping, normal camp stuff is going to bring these creatures in. Maybe. Because let's face it, there's a bunch of people that claim to be Bigfoot researchers that aren't doing anything. They're out there taking pictures of random, and they claim tree structures, but they don't vet it. They don't look at the details. They don't try to figure out how this happened, if it's a natural occurrence of storm damage, if it came from the same tree, if it's actual manipulation that looks to be manipulated by hands. They're not out there doing that. And in the videos that we show of structures, I think the majority of them is we show you why we think it's a Bigfoot, of why, or it's manipulation, or it's just strange. You can have 1 in a million shots of trees, wrapping around and doing some crazy stuff, of course. But if you don't look at the details and try to figure out, is this natural or is it manipulation, then you're not really doing yourself a service. Because I can do that. I could go out there and I could get 100 different tree structures by taking pictures and claiming it's a tree structure, and it's not. Anyone can do that. Anyone can go take a picture of some bushes and then, zoom in and try to find a Bigfoot, and you probably will. It's called pareidolia. That's why I don't really show pictures of Bigfoot, because I don't got any pictures of Bigfoot. If I take a picture of a Bigfoot, I'm going to show you. And it's because I've probably seen the Bigfoot and I'm trying to take a picture. I'm not just randomly taking pictures and then trying to find the Bigfoot in the picture. Anyone can do that. That is literally hoaxing. It's literally hoaxing. If you knowingly didn't see the Sasquatch and you're just taking pictures, especially if you're not having any activity, and then you find Bigfoot in your picture, no. Either you're delusional or you're hoaxing on purpose. If you knowingly know that there's nothing there, you're hoaxing. I think people get caught up in trying to find stuff and excitement and, oh yeah, this is cool. And they just don't have the experience. They don't want to learn. They don't even want to really vet what they're trying to find. You know how many times I had people or former members trying to say, hey, this is, look at this structure. Look at this structure. Look at this structure. It's like, okay, well, let's go over there. Let's look. Okay, let's look. Okay, that's not it. See, it came from there. See that big old broken branch way up there? That's where this came from. Hearing stuff in the woods. There's a lot of sounds in the woods. I've heard stuff that I thought, was wood knocks, and then I get up on top of a hill and I realize that it's a woodpecker. But the way the sound travels down the hill and is buffered through all this trees, it sounds more thick, it's more robust, But it was just an illusion. And a lot of people would not want to admit that they were tricked. That they didn't really, oh my God, it's a Bigfoot. It's definitely a Bigfoot. And then when they get up there and they find out it's a woodpecker, they're like, dang it. No, no one needs to know about that. That's hoaxing. That's straight up lying. It's hoaxing. And I can't stand it, because when we have real evidence, like the pictures I showed, it gets muddied with all this other crap, and it doesn't see the light of day. It doesn't get it doesn't get seen by a lot of these researchers, and it doesn't get, talked about. Instead, you have hoaxes or this bullcrap stuff that, is not even that good. Blob squatch is not even that good. And yet, they're passed around and people are, I see the eyes and I see this, blah, blah, blah. I've had a hoaxer and I proved he was a hoaxer. He went like this. He has a sweatshirt on. He literally goes like this on video. Super fast. He claims it's a Bigfoot charging him. He rolls out of the way, blah, 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 blah. He paints 2 eyeballs on it, and people, even a person who I was like, wow, you really falling for this? Said, wow, they see the eyes, they see, the mouth and all this. And when I looked at it and broke it down and slowed it down, you can see the sleeve and stuff is blue and hairy, and you see he's just going like this. It's frustrating because you have people who literally claim I can see the Bigfoot face and it's on a hoax, but when you show them a real good picture, they're like, well, just this or that. So if you want to be very serious at this, then take it seriously. If you want to, be more proficient at your research, then get proficient by learning, by observing, by looking at other people's research, by, vetting it yourself. It might take a long time before you'll be able to spot fake stuff, real stuff, before you think, you have a good intuition about people, if they're being honest, if they're lying, if they're hoaxing you, if they're legit, if they think what they got is real, but it's really not, I know I try my best. And what really sucks in the community is there's people who get jealous, get mad. And they get jealous because, you have activity, or you seemingly get activity more than them or more than other people. And then they get so jealous that they scoff at your research. They scoff at your evidence. They don't even want to look at it. You try to tell them about something, they don't want to hear it. It's just, I wasn't there. Didn't happen. That happens a lot. And those people are not good researchers then. A lot of crap gets talked. A lot of people get jealous and talk crap to other people and try to get you, kicked off certain expeditions and do this and that. And I think it's just funny how people, try to talk to other people and try to get you off. And it's like, well, all I'm doing is doing what I do. I don't talk crap about people, especially to other people behind their back. I hate that. I don't want that done to me. I certainly don't do that to other people. And the fact that, someone's actively trying to get you kicked off from an expedition because they don't like you or what certain things that you do that has nothing to do with Bigfoot, I think that shows their character. I think it proves who kind of person they are, where their mindset is. And I think that the person who puts the work and the effort and shows it and tries, and you see that, I think that's more important than, words. Actions speak louder than words. And I think there's just too many words in the Bigfoot community and not enough action. So, this is at the very end of the show, so I'll have to say this again on another one. But I think next year there's going to be an open invitation for a expedition here in Michigan, hosted by me and Lost Cryptids Conservatory. I think I'm going to try to get some good researchers out here and be in these woods. Maybe it won't be next year. Maybe it'll be 2023. But yep, there's going to be an open invitation, I think. And so anyone can contact me about it, but only certain people who I think are capable, good, honest researchers and actually going to do the work, only them are going to be truly invited to the spots that I want to go. I don't want no camp out with the boys. I want research expedition. I want in those woods. Anyways, my little rant. It's frustrating sometimes. There's a lot of narcissists in this community, and there's a lot of trolls, and there's a lot of fake people, and a lot of people who claim to be researchers and they're not. They're just presenting themselves as something they're not. And the easiest way to find that out is going into the woods with those people and looking at them and what are they doing? Are they actually going out there? Are they actually sweating and busting butt, or are they just hanging out at camp, not really doing anything? Because that ain't research, and that's a wasted slot on an expedition when you could have had someone else in those woods busting butt. And yet some of these people are held on a pretty high pedestal when they ain't doing nothing. They certainly didn't do nothing on the expedition. So I guess, anyone who's actually been in the field with me, or actually if I've ever will be in the field with anyone, I think they can tell pretty fast that I am very serious about this. And I don't I don't want to swear because YouTube don't like that, but I don't do this half-witted at this. I do this full bore all the time. It sucks. It sucks that you people who you think are researchers turn out that they're not, or that they're really doing nothing. All right, I am going to get off because I already said it wasn't going to be 3 hours, and now it's almost 3 hours. It just seems like time flies by when I jump on here and start talking. So anyways, I'll try to get some guests here pretty soon. I'll show you guys some videos. Videos will be coming out. So anyways, everyone who's stuck around watching, thank you. I appreciate you guys' support and your time, because I know a lot of you guys spend your time watching this, and I appreciate that a lot. Even when I'm ranting and raving and not really talking about things that probably should be talked about more, but I do feel that the community needs to be held to a higher standard, that we are stuck at this level of crap that we're at now, of infighting and crap evidence, and really not being knowledgeable of the forests and woods and animals in North America. So that's why I'm taking this seriously, and I think anyone who's not the real deal, not really putting the effort like they seem to be, I think those people need to be called out. Maybe if not called out, then they should be known. They should know that, that they're not what they say they are. It's frustrating. It's frustrating that someone who takes it very seriously, all these people who don't take it seriously and are lying and not really being honest, not even really good researchers, are put on this pedestal that is just, it's fake. Anyways, without further ado, guys, I'll see you next week. Probably a show on Thursday, and definitely a show on Saturday. Saturdays are really good. And yeah. All right. Thank you guys all again. I appreciate your support and your time very, very much. If you guys need to contact me, I'm going to type in the comments section how you guys can get a hold of me. I can't. Here we go. So it's important that you spell it the way it is, because I won't get any email if you guys don't. Okay, so that is the email for the Lost Cryptids Conservatory. You have to have each word capitalized for it to send to me. I'm also going to give the other email that I use, my personal email. So this one's easier to spell and remember, and that's my personal email. Email me at either one. If you guys got stories, encounters, and most importantly is reports. We are definitely taking reports. I want, you need the date, you need the time, a summary, location. You don't need to be exact location if you don't want to. County would suffice, and a summary of what happened. But I need to talk about the environment, and make sure you have the time, date, the year, and location. Very important, because we are going to put it into the database and map things out, and it's very important that we start getting more reports. So send your reports there. Any questions, comments, concerns, send it to my email. Any evidence you guys have, you guys want to get my opinion on, send it my way. Yeah, and I'm going to give you my honest opinion. So, just be ready. lot of people sometimes don't like showing me stuff because I tell them, well, you know, it's not really that good, and it's most likely pareidolia, or, you know, it's good to be honest because, you know, you want people to get better evidence than what we are getting. So if it ain't good enough, it ain't good enough. All right, guys. Thanks again. I'll see you guys later. Hope you have a good rest of the night.
The Lost Cryptids Conservatory, where we will shatter your reality to bring you closer to the truth.
Mm-hmm.